Welcome you all to today's colloquium. Today we are going to hear from Flagstaff coconino farmers, how they manage to farm in high elevations. Some of us, we don't know how they manage to do that. And we don't want to take the words from their mouth. So we want to hear from them how they manage to farm at high elevations. So we hear from Ryland today, from Forestdale farm, and then Caleb from Refugia farm. And hopefully Summer can join us from Root Micro Farm. So once she's able to join us, she'll be the third person to present. And then our professor from campus, a specialist in horticulture, will also give us an overview. She has expertise in seasonal extension, so she'll give us an overview. She'll summarize the whole thing at the end of the farmer's talks. And then we will take some questions after that. So Rylan, if you are with me, you can take over from me now.
All right.
So just a moment, you have 10 minutes to present for each of the farmers. And then at the end of the day, we'll have more time for questions as well. All right.
Perfect, cool. Yeah, I've got just a few slides. So yeah, I'm Rylan with Forestdale Farm, like Isaac said, here in Flagstaff, Arizona. So I'm just gonna kind of go through these. Hopefully my internet stays working as well. Let's see. Okay. All right, so just a little bit about our farm to start. So we value kind of water conservation, biodiversity, and healthy soil. Those are real key components of our growing here. We do a lot of, the main thing we do is vegetables. So we do a lot of leafy greens, salad mixes, microgreens, but we also grow just a variety of everything. But really in our climate here in the higher elevation and the cooler weather, the leafy greens do really good and the root crops do great. So those are kind of the big, the thing we grow the most of. We also do chickens. We've done ducks and turkeys in the past. And then we have a pharmacy line where we do some personal care products like deodorants and salves. And in the spring, we do a lot of garden starts for the community, for school gardens and just for community growers. And then we also do compost on the farm, and we've been branching out into a little bit of sales on some of the compost we produce. Our main way of selling is through our farm stand here at the farm. So we have a CSA pickup that comes here. We do the community markets, the Sunday market and the Wednesday market in Flagstaff, and then we sell to local stores and restaurants. So that's just a little bit about us for anyone who's not familiar with Forestdale Farm. Vegetable production, the kind of things I'm going to just touch briefly on that I think are relevant to our region are just kind of the limited and expensive farmland, because that kind of leaves people in Flagstaff growing on smaller plots. So that's, you know, we got to be really creative with kind of how we grow just because we're on a limited space. And with that also comes the poor soil of our region. And then the high altitude things are the extreme weather, which I'll talk quite a bit about. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about water conservation too. So yeah. Our farm, our main part of the farm, you know, is under 2 acres, and we have about 1 acre in vegetable production. So spatial efficiency is really important, and making sure, you know, we're getting high yields off everything we grow. So we do really intensive production, you know, in one spot, one garden bed or raised bed, for instance, we do about 4 crops per season in it. So we're doing real high production, quick maturing crops, and you know, things we turn over and plant real quick too. So, you know, with that in mind, you know, we have to be able to get as much yield as we can from every space. So that's kind of where a lot of the infrastructure comes in to protect from the weather and the problems with the being in a higher elevation such as Flagstaff. And then on top of that, it's just soil and farm. diversity. So in our region, again, there's not a lot of farms because there's not a lot of farmland. The farmers are growing on smaller plots, like I mentioned, and also the soil is not that great. So it takes a lot of buildup of compost, different rotations of crops, and then having extra inputs like fish in your systems and chickens for compost really help you build up the soil. So all of that, those are kind of the difficulties that you need to just start growing. But then once you're growing, you get into the high, all the problems with being in our climate, the weather. So that's where it really comes, a lot of the infrastructure really is critical for growing successfully. So the main thing is frost, snow, and hail. And luckily, all of those can kind of be taken care of in the same way. So you can see these pictures. We do a lot of raised beds, and we have hoops on them so we can cover them. And then we do a lot of low tunnel production, and we have a big high tunnel too. So the main thing is just being able to protect your crops at any time throughout the season, because frost, we can have frost, all the way until June. So, right in the middle of summer, you can get a hard frost. We can have snow really late into the spring. And then, after the June frosts, we can have hail and monsoons, which we've had this year. So, basically the whole year you can have these extreme weather events that you need to be able to protect for. And again, being a small scale farmer, you really have to, any lost in yield of what you planted is a big setback. So it's really important to, be able to maintain like 100% yield on everything you grow if possible. A little bit lost to insect damage, but for the most part, we get pretty good yields off everything. And yeah, so I think that's kind of the main touch. If you go back, this is a picture of our high tunnel. So this is really great for like our early spring production. We usually start in all of our high tunnels and low tunnels, and then we move out into the raised beds that are outside as we get into the season. And then at the end of the season too, we sort of phase back into the high tunnel. So the high tunnels are really great to have the season extension, but again, they protect against the violent rains and monsoons, the hail, anything like that. So everything in our climate just grows better under cover, especially a high tunnel, because even the UV light is really harsh. So if I have one bed in the high tunnel and the same exact thing next to the high tunnel, I get quite a significant yield being in the high tunnel because the light's more diffused and it's not as harsh on the plants. So that's a real important thing. Even if it's a small hoop that you can cover with some sort of shade shade that filters out the intense sun, it really helps the crops. And then, yeah, the last thing I wanted to just touch on was water conservation. So that's kind of another important thing, I think, for our region, for Flagstaff, and I mean, all of the Southwest, it's pretty arid, and we're, water is really limited. So we do a lot of rainwater catchment on our farm. We have about 50,000 gallons that we can store. And this is a picture of the pond. So that's about like 15 or like 17,000 gallons of rainwater. And then we have tanks connected to all of our other greenhouses that we can store water on. And I think that's a real important thing from like a sustainability viewpoint. And yeah, so that's kind of just a quick overview, but basically the main thing that really can set back a new farmer is the weather in Flagstaff and in high elevations. So you have the higher intense sunlight, you have the late snows, you have frost in the middle of summer, you have hail and just violent rain that can wash away seedlings or even flood things in the late summer. So the whole season you're battling weather, but that's real easy to remedy if you have just hoops and easy, efficient ways that you can cover and protect your crops during those extreme weather events. And yeah, with that, I'll kind of pass it on to the next person. If anyone has questions, I don't know how you're doing questions, Isaac, but I can answer any if needed.
Yeah, so we'll keep the questions. Please keep your questions written down so that once all of them are done, we can ask the questions and then tailor them for them to respond. Just that we can save some time moving back and forth. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Alan, for the comprehensive details you gave us. We'll move to Caleb, and then from there we'll go to Summer.
All righty, let me get my screen shared really quick. All right. Let's see, that is the end of the presentation. Let's go to the beginning. Can everyone see that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me, for having us. My name is Caleb Eckert. I'm one of the 3 co-farmers with Refugia Gardens. We're a small scale farm out on the northeast side of Flagstaff. Yeah, we started up back in 2019. So this is our 3rd official season. The 3 of us are kind of all young farmers. This is a view, a little bit of an old photo of our farm, but we do a lot of stuff. I'm going to be echoing a lot of things that Rylan said, but we do a lot of stuff actually outside. We've been slowly building our capacity for some of our hoop house growing and season extension and stuff as we, I'm just going to toss a timer on, otherwise I might go over. As we kind of build out in our own capacity, here's the 3 of us. So it's my partner, Heather, and then our good friend, Nick. We all co-run, co-manage, co-own the farm. And we're on the northeast side of the peaks, or just on the east side of the peaks, northeast of town, as we all are on occupied indigenous land in the region. So Rylan is on a different part of town. We're in the rain shadow of the mountains. We actually are hotter, are a little bit warmer, we're more exposed generally, and a little bit, quite a bit drier on our side of the mountain. So there are plenty of challenges with that, but we grow a lot of different kinds of things. We have a small scale CSA of varying different sizes. And then we also sell at the Flagstaff Community Market. And then we also have some relationships with a few caterers in town as well. And so we do an amalgam of things, that we grow on our little small, I think it's about half an acre total footprint. It's about a quarter to a third of an acre of actual intensive vegetable production. So we grow a bunch of things, as well as we do a little bit of wild crafting, as you can see in the bottom right corner, with banana yucca. We try to use bioregional varieties that are well adapted to our climate and to our all the things we're trying to do. So we're really trying to be, as much as we can, minded to the kind of justice aspects of farming, as well as attentive to the the challenges and issues and opportunities that present themselves in our particular region. So we also have chickens, lots of laying hens, and we also integrate them into our composting systems, just for keeping on-farm nutrients available, in addition to experimenting with compost teas and kind of other types of foliar sprays and such. So we love our dear sweet hens. Yeah, I think again, I'm going to be echoing a lot of what Rylan said. We are, there's a lot of challenges of growing at 7,000 feet. And some of them in particular to our place is we get a lot of wind. That we're kind of in a wind tunnel between Mount Eldon and the peaks. So we get a lot of wind that kind of blasts through our neighborhood and some of the neighborhoods around us. So that poses a lot of different stresses on the plants, but we also get a fair bit of snow amid winters where we get a lot of sun. So it's a lot of taking covers off and putting them on and taking covers off. I'm sure, as many of you know. So we've been experimenting a little bit with growing in the winter time, doing some cool hardy crops, kind of Elliott Coleman style. in unheated hoop houses. So we have one 50-foot hoop house, Quonset tunnel hoop house that you can see in this image. And then we have another, which we built in 2019. And then we have another Gothic tunnel, which we built earlier this year. That's about 14 feet wide by 100 feet long. And we kind of rotate a bunch of things out, but that's our main kind of big season extension, as well as we have, as you can see, a bunch of low tunnels on our little spot of land too. So yeah, we try to do as much as we can building up soil fertility. Again, like Ryland said, we have a lot of pretty nutrient poor soil here. On our side of the mountain, we do have less rocky soil, but there is just no organic matter or very little nitrogen and micronutrients. So we're just working on kind of building that in whatever ways we can. Yeah, we have lots of abundance, which we are deeply grateful for. But we also definitely, as Ryland said, we deal with issues with weather and rain. We actually are in the scar of the Schultz fire, which was back in 2010, which burned this whole side of the mountain. And so from then, the first kind of 3 years after that event, we had some pretty significant flooding in this region. And then on this side of the mountain, and then we still kind of deal with some issues around, we had an inch and a half of rain in an hour a couple weeks ago, and we had a bunch of water come in off the road and kind of flood some of our rows. So just, a little bit of everything. I would love to kind of, I guess, throw something in briefly, because I know I'd love to kind of interface with folks with questions and answers. But one thing that has been immensely helpful for us, and I think that maybe farmers don't talk about, in my experience, don't talk about quite as much with each other, is record keeping. So we use this really useful open source and free, if you're able to install it on your own web server, what have you, program that a person developed called FarmOS. And it is a very kind of hackable program, but the program itself is basically web-based, so it's like a website. But it allows you to do a bunch of really great record keeping for the farm, for a farm or a plot, as well as, on kind of all aspects of the farm. So be it animals or, keeping track of kind of the history of beds, keeping, nutrient plans and everything. Anyway, it's a great program. I'd love to talk with folks about it. It's just, helped us kind of figure out, do a lot of our kind of planning and record keeping and such in meaningful, decent ways. So we grow a number of things, and we grow lots of greens, and we grow a bunch of different root crops and things. And we also deal with many moments through the season where we are putting on frost cloth, and then the next day we are rolling up the tunnels and putting on our shade cloth. So we're putting on frost cloth over shade cloth. As we dip this season, we dipped from a 90-degree day, and then in 24 hours we went down to 27 degrees, and we were below freezing for about 7 hours. So there's only so much you can do, but it's a joy to do it. It's a lot of work, and we have a short growing season, but I'd love to have conversations and chat near I guess after summer speaks. Thanks so much. Here's just some information about us, and we'd love to chat soon.
That was awesome. Yeah, Caleb, thank you very much for your succinct presentation. Someone, let's hear from you too, and then after that, we'll take some few questions, and then also come up with the season extension. Yeah.
Okay, sounds great. Hi everyone, I'm Summer White. Let me just share my screen here. Please bear with me. All right. Hopefully y'all can see this all right.
Yeah, looks good.
So let's double check. Can someone give me the,
Yeah, it's good.
okay, awesome. So hello everyone, I'm Summer White. I'm one of the co-managers at Roots Micro Farm. So we are a small scale urban farm in downtown Flagstaff. We're on Birch and Benito Street on a 1/4 acre lot. So we've been farming in this space this will be our 6th season. And I've personally been working in this space for 4. I'm also going to be echoing a lot of what Rylan and Caleb have been talking to y'all about, as the 3 of us farm with very similar methods growing in this high elevation climate. We mainly focus on quick growing, high rotation crops at Roots, especially given our small space. So that's a lot of root vegetables such as radishes and turnips and beets and carrots, lots of salad greens, arugula, kale, and then our main crop that we grow at Roots and distribute to the community are microgreens. So I've got a photo here to show you all. This is predominantly what we provide to the community through a CSA program where folks can pick up directly at the farm on Sundays, as well as the Flagstaff Community Market, and we've distributed to many local restaurants over the years. So these are extremely quick growing, usually between 1.5 weeks and 2 weeks, we receive a yield from microgreens, and we produce these in a high tunnel outside. So we currently aren't producing them year round, but this is our main crop. And I'll go back here. In the space, we do utilize a hoop house, so that's really vital to our season extension. We have overwintered things before, and we utilize cover crops to extend into October and usually get going in the season around mid-April, sometimes early March, depending on what we have going on. But you know, as others have mentioned, we do have a shorter growing season here than other places in Arizona and across the country. We utilize a solar system to power. We have a fan in our hoop house for airflow, and a couple of other small appliances at the farm, but otherwise we are technically off grid. And for water, we do utilize city water. We are right in downtown, so we do have access there from a neighbor. So that is really important for us. We've been obviously very grateful for the amount of rain that we've been receiving recently, but we do have big plans to install some more advanced rainwater catchment systems, as we understand that water is so scarce and vital for our operation. So we are a somewhat new business, so getting that going has been important to us. And when we are utilizing city water, we have a drip system. So we've got lines in the front of the farm here. This photo was taken just a couple of days ago with the rain, and also in our hoop house area. So, you know, helping with evaporation and things of that sort, actually getting to the source quicker than hand watering and things of that nature. We do utilize biointensive techniques that involves heavy crop rotation. So once a season, we'll usually have 3 to 4 rotations for each bed, depending on what's in there and how long things are taken to grow. We also have a decent amount of perennials in our space. So a lot of perennial herbs that are edible, and also really influential for pollinator habitat. So we're really, we deeply believe that creating that ecosystem, that mini ecosystem, is really important for our space, especially with our size. But yeah, as others have mentioned, it is a harsh growing environment here, and utilizing high tunnels and cover crops is almost a must, especially for market gardeners such as ourselves, who are, you know, bringing in income from our crops. So yeah, we are also very, we're young farmers, so we are very much in the in the process of improving our systems and learn from folks that have been doing it for much longer. So yeah, that's kind of all I had prepared for today. There's a little bit, if you want to reach us via email or visit our website, we've got more information there about our operation and what we have been offering to the community. So yeah, excited to answer your all's questions in more details.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you very much. One thing I like about Flagstaff farmers is that they are all young farmers. Yeah, so it makes it more interesting, and the kind of energy that is needed to do the covering and all these things, you really have to have the energy to do that. Yeah. Yeah, so there's one question coming in already that we'll have to start with that from Kabil. He's asking to someone, how are you utilizing the, let me see, how do you capture rainwater and how much irrigation water is coming from rainwater catchments? I think this probably goes to all of you. You can contribute to that.
Yeah, I could start that. So
let's see your faces. Let's see your faces. Summer, Caleb, and then Roland. You can put yourself on video so we can see you. Okay, great. All right.
Yeah, so so we catch our rainwater off basically every structure that we can. So like the hoop houses are actually really a great source to catch rainwater on. So our largest hoop house is 26 by 70, and we have just kind of dug a little stream along the side on one side and lined it with pond liner. And then on the other side, there's a bunch of tanks. And then all of the small hoop houses either have some sort of system that drains into tanks basically. And then our pond is kind of our overflow and our main area. And the roof of the chicken coop, which is pretty large, is a metal roof, and that goes into the pond. So we can store about 50,000 gallons at and we have 2 properties too. So this property, we can store about 50,000, and we're developing another one. And currently we can store about 20,000 out there right now. But basically, yeah, the great thing about high tunnels is that you have that surface area that you can catch off of. So the more high tunnels, the more you can catch and store, and then you can kind of ration it out throughout the rest of the season. And typically we catch, in the winter, where we can fill up that 50,000 gallons if we get a good winter and we kind of have some carryover from the season before. And then that'll get us to like June. And then June is like so hot that you just burn through water no matter how much you have. It's ridiculous. But then if monsoons come like this, then we fill back up, and that'll help push us through to the end of the season. But that's kind of the way we do it on our farm.
Great. Summer, do you do it different or is similar to what Caleb does?
Kind of as I mentioned in our presentation, we haven't quite dialed in rainwater catchment as much as Ryland has. We're really hoping to start running catchment off of our hoop house. We've seen some systems in place with gutters along the side, and actually all of our structures are in that circular shape, so we don't have any roofs that are angled. So that's kind of what we hope to do, but as I mentioned, we haven't quite installed those systems quite yet on our space.
Okay, that's great. Great. Thank you. There is another question that says that what are your methods in hoop house to shade and unshade during the daytime temperature variations? Any automatic, anything automatic? So the question is that what methods do you use to shade and unshade your hoop houses when the temperatures are high, and are they automated or not?
Yeah, so I'll go again real quick. So nothing's very automated on our farm. The main thing with our hoop houses is you like have ventilation is kind of almost more important than shade even. So we have the sides that can roll up and the ends that can open up. But when we shade, you know, it's just kind of once it's really hot, we just put a big shade cloth across the whole top and secure it, and then we just leave it on, you know, like a lightweight, like a 30% shade cloth, or like 50% if it's really hot. But it just stays on and then it comes off. It's really not that hard to take off, but usually leave it on for 2 months, like, you know, June, July, and into August sometimes.
Okay, awesome. I have a personal question I wanted to ask. Do you have like pest issues in your location in terms of pests and diseases?
Go somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna, the questions about pests and diseases and things of that nature, correct? And just how we kind of mitigate those issues. Yeah, so we mostly utilize, well, we only utilize natural pest repellent. Luckily, we don't have a whole lot of issues with that in our space. Luckily, we've had problems with aphids in the past, not so much grasshoppers, but we do have a pretty significant ladybug population, and in the past we've used natural repellents, such as mixtures with garlic and pepper and things that naturally deter those pests. But yeah, predatory bugs is kind of what we've experimented with in the past. Rylan, I'm not sure, you might have a much different experience in your location.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I think the benefit of like the way that we grow in summer too is that it's a high turnaround. So, you know, if you have a crop around for too long, you can get more pest issues with it. But when you're constantly turning over beds, that pest pressure doesn't build up as much. But in like a high tunnel, and when you do have crops around, it does build up. But I think we don't do any pest control, like even natural, just because it's so time consuming and a lot of times it's just frustrating. But like, I think the biggest thing you can do is just have healthy soil. So, you know, the more like compost, the healthier your plants are, the less pest issues you'll have. And because once you have pest issues, it's just it's a losing battle, like, or it's just a lot of really time consuming. So we don't really do anything. We do have aphids that appear in the summer months, like in our high tunnel and stuff, but you know, they're not detrimental to any crops or anything.
Sarah, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question I think it's a lot of text, if you can summarize it quickly. So she's trying to say, do you find it gets too hot in the middle of day in winter in the hoop houses, or does it stay cool enough for you? So they are about 4,200 feet, and even the day snow overnight, it can get too hot. So what are your temperatures? Sometimes do you get it too hot for you guys in those elevations, in the high tunnels?
Yeah, our temperature, I didn't have a mic at first. I had to enable it. Our temperatures range like 60 degrees between the highs and lows during each day oftentimes. And I don't know what your range is, but do you have trouble with that? Because we thought our high tunnel would be good for winter, but it's getting too hot in the middle of the day, and we're like considering like, are we gonna cover and uncover during the day every day, or what? And so wondering what you're doing.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, basically, even in like middle of winter, yeah, it gets really hot in the high tunnel. I mean, Arizona has a lot of sun, and anytime the sun's out, it's really hot. Like you pretty much have to be able to open and vent the greenhouse or high tunnel or anything like year round if you're growing in it. So the main thing is like the more ventilations, like even especially if you can open up the whole end walls completely, like, and then the side walls, that's your kind of best way to do it. But every day, if you're growing in it every single day, you pretty much have to open it, you know, by 9 in my experience, like if the sun's out. And then, you know, when it's really cold, like in the winter, you want to close it early to like get all that heat trapped in there and really heat up all the thermal mass and everything. And then, but you know, but you can always cook things if you aren't like constantly opening and closing, I feel like.
Okay, right. So right now, Ursula says she has some data on that in her presentation. So let's give Ursula the opportunity to give us her presentation now, and then hopefully some of our questions will be answered, and if not, we can come up with the other questions. Ursula, thank you very much for joining us, and please feel free to take over now if you're ready.
So thank you so much, everybody, and thank you for the great presentations. Can you hear me and can you see my presentation?
I can hear you, but your presentation, okay, now we can see it.
Okay, great. Here we go. Okay, can everybody see that now?
Yes, I can
Perfect.
see. Hope everyone
Okay.
can see too.
Great, I hope so. Yeah, please put something in the chat. So thank you so much for having me in your company. I think it's awesome that you're all doing this and sharing your experiences. I have a couple of general observations and also some data on using season extension with high or low tunnels. And so a lot of it we can actually go through real quickly, but I do have some data that may be of interest to you, even though some of it is from Tucson. So why would you do the season extension? I mean, start earlier, continue longer. And I think everybody who talked already has spoken about how the crops are protected from wind, sun, rain, hail, and also from insects in some cases. And we have certainly experienced that. But one of the big things is that you can have better quality, higher yield, and consistent cropping. The produce is also clean, whereas in the field, you sometimes have produce that can be full of soil or there can be, you know, other things on there that make it a little bit more difficult to market then. And you have an extended marketing season. On the SARE website, there is essentially some information which really affirms everything that we've been hearing. And that was from an extension specialist in West Virginia who shared that in their very harsh climate, they have early and late freezes, frost, strong winds, and heavy snow. They had really good results using extensions with hoop houses. And so the hoop houses can be a lot of different shapes. And the one on top left, that is some that we have built with several beginning farmer courses over the years. The one below that is a caterpillar house. So that doesn't have the end walls, but is then a lot easier to vent. And then the structure that you see on the bottom right has plastic glazing and it has shade cloth underneath. And that's what
hope we are not losing us. Okay. Let's wait a little more and see if she'll be able to connect back. If she can rejoin us. So next week, our next month meeting will not happen because there is a program, a little bit shift in program. We have a new funding coming in for organic agriculture. So we want to do kind of like a launch for that program. And the program is for us small scale farmers and organic farmers. And yeah, so whether you're an organic farmer or not, you're part of the program. Hopefully you can transition within during the program period. And if you're not transitioning, you can also use the data to benefit you locally. So we are going to collect local data using Great Promise to see how we can use it to enhance soil fertility and plant health. So being tuned in September, hopefully when we get the green light to be able to launch it, I'll send an email out to you all to be able to register for that program. Yeah.
So are you saying that there's not going to be meetings until then? Is that what you mean?
Yes, we're supposed to have a meeting in September for the season extension. That's why I asked Ursula to present in this meeting. So we don't have to have that meeting, but instead we're going to have a different meeting, which will be a project launch. We'll launch a project in that, but not with the same. I'll send out an email for those who are interested to register.
Great, thanks.
You, so probably you can present it. So she's going to present it this way and record it and send it to us to listen to on a later date. That should be the option for now. Okay.
So I just wanted to say a few things. One of the things that's really great is what Caleb was talking about, the record keeping program. That is extremely important. I do have some economic analysis in also, and we found that based on when you're looking at your investments, getting your payback from the hoop house, and also counting your labor actually and paying yourself, more than maybe 10 cents an hour, and maybe making a living off your production, you have to do the record keeping, and you have to keep track of everything that you're investing and everything that you're essentially using, because you have to figure out which of the crops are profitable and which ones are not profitable. And that is really, really important, because if you cannot do that, you may really, even if you take in some money, you may not be able to pay yourself back and such. So that's one of the things that is very important right now. But otherwise, also, when it comes to the differences in the temperatures in the greenhouses, what I found is that you can have like temperatures, even when it's outside, like 40 degrees of up to 100 degrees in the hoop house. And then one of the things, I think one of you was talking about using a frost cloth, because we have that here in Tucson where we don't get the bad frost as often, but we use the frost cloth to cover the greens. And we found that covering the crop when the outside temperature fell to like the mid to low 20 degrees Fahrenheit, we found that in the hoop house, then, if we would not ventilate, it would get up to 95 degrees Fahrenheit during the daytime, the air temperature. And even under the first cloth, it would get pretty high, like 80 degrees. And so if you would leave that on like for a whole week or so, you would really get in trouble with aphids and some of the other insects that would be attacking your crop. And one year we had a very warm winter, and in February it was about 6 degrees warmer than normal. We had almost a total crop loss that year because the aphids, and then we got early white flies and a couple of other pests that pretty much destroyed everything that we had. So that was very unfortunate in that we couldn't really deal with things that way. And and also using the right crops. Like, for example, if you're growing squash or something out of season that needs to be pollinated by insects, you need to make sure that you pick a crop that is actually able to be grown without pollinators and will set fruit without pollinators. So sometimes we forget that. And unless you're interested in introducing the pollinators, or if you would do it yourself, which can be extremely cumbersome, that is often not really a choice that is viable. So I just wanted to mention a couple of those things and essentially, help with that. But one of the things that I found also is that when you're looking at the cost of growing, we found really that I was able to open up my PowerPoint. So, but I will record it because otherwise it's just too much. But we found that in terms of the harvest and being paid back, when we grew crops like arugula, kale, chives, spinach, and cilantro, we found that we would have to pay the plant the entire with kale, and then we would get $271 back if we wouldn't even leave walkways. Whereas the other crops like arugula, chives, and spinach and cilantro, they would pretty much be a loss, and we wouldn't really make our money back if we're looking at paying ourselves back for constructing the high tunnel and for also our labor and everything. And so keeping track of your costs and trying to learn as much as possible from some of the publications. I also have like a publication that I have looked up using low tunnels to extend the growing in season for organic strawberries in Alabama. They found that certain things like black plastic and low tunnels were helpful, but it also mattered a lot what kind of cultivation. So I could just answer a couple of quick questions because there's just, I don't know what happened here, but there's no way I can get on quickly enough. And what I will do is I will record, like a 25-minute presentation, and I really apologize. I have no idea what happened.
All right, thank you very much. I think we've been able to get some information from you, and yeah, with the recording that will help us, so we can share that later on a later date. And yeah, there is one question that is coming in. Ryland said he's using a recycled water, and the question came in whether he measures the salt concentrations applying the recycled water to the vegetables. Ryland, do you have any idea? Do you measure those concentrations in the soil and to see whether you have some salt problems in the soil using the recycled water?
So recycled water, we use like the rainwater, doesn't have any of that buildup, but like we do use, I think, is he referring to gray water? We catch gray water like from our wash station in different places, but we don't really use that on the beds because of concerns with that. But we do, we use biodegradable products, and we kind of make sure that none of them have the salt in it, because that's the main thing. And also the pH, level is really important too. So we kind of make sure we're not using any products that would have salt or that would increase the pH really high, are kind of the main things. But for the rainwater, there's not really any issues with that. We catch it, and if we have a pond or something, we actually have fish in it. So that helps bring, the nutrient load of the water up, and you get the fertilizer from the fish waste. So that's a real big benefit, and as long as the fish are happy, the water is like, yeah, the plants are super happy.
Okay. So with the recycled water, I want to say something about the recycled water. The recycled water, also is here with us. So you want to continue, or you want to do the recording? and then
I-
send it to us.
Since people are on, I will be very happy to just show some of those slides,
That's
especially
right.
the ones I think related to the temperatures, because I think that is a concern that a lot of people have, and I think a lot of you have already.
Go ahead and then make your presentation. I think we should be able to accommodate. Let me see. Maybe I have to make a co-host again. Make co-host. Okay. All right. Hopefully you should be able to share your screen now. Try it and let's see.
Can you see my screen?
No.
No.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah, that's one interesting thing about online events. So let's.
Okay, I think I'm here again. Now you can
Okay,
see it, right?
it's loading. It's loading now.
You should be
There we
able to
go.
see it now. Can you see it?
That's awesome. Awesome data there. Let's hear
Okay.
you.
So really what I did want to show everybody here is that to monitor the temperatures in the field and in your structures is so important, because that's one of the things that you really need to do to know what's going on. And you can go with a minimum maximum temperature, but if you get a data logger, then you can really see what's going on. And here's just an example, you know, from the literature. But here is data from our the Arizona Meteorological Network, and there are some thick lines over here that is under the crown under plastic of strawberries, and then 2 inches below the plastic and in the soil. So those are what these thick lines are. And the green line that goes all the way down into the 20s, that is the Arizona, that is the air temperature outside. So it goes at night into the 20s here. And then the purple ones, that is that's the temperature in the house. And then okay, I'll show the next one over here. And then when the temperatures dip below 30, that's when the frost cloth goes on. And when they go above 30 again, that's when the frost cloth goes off. But you can see, in addition to the data that I showed you, now those red lines, they go into the 90s almost every day, because we did not we did not cool the hoop house. We did not open the hoop house, because for us, of course, it felt extremely cold. You can see the daytime temperatures in blue. They go from the mid 70s all the way down into, you know, the 40s, and then they go up. But the nighttime temperatures were very low, but it did not freeze ever in the soil. And so that's one of the things that's really important. But you have to vent that house, and if you don't vent the house, it will just get too hot and it will exceed the optimum temperatures. I'm just going to go back 3 slides here, and this is the house where that I wanted to show you. We have the strawberry plots here under the black plastic, and then we have the other plots. This is one of 2 hoop houses that we grew. I grew a lot of different crops in there from 2013 to 2016. And so that's the data I wanted to show you. But I have some more data that I wanted to show you. And, you know, when you're using some of these floating row covers, you have to make sure that it doesn't destroy the leaves, or in some cases, when it does get very cold in the hoop house, that it doesn't touch the leaves, because that can actually damage the leaves. And, you know, you want to think about the different weight of the row covers and such. And you know, what are the optimum temperatures to grow things? And that's why you really want to know what is going on in your hoop house, and or under your row covers, or under your frost cloth in the hoop house, and what is going on outside. So having temperature monitoring devices, which are very inexpensive now, will be very helpful. And then I had mentioned you need to have cultivars that set seed without pollination. If you're growing something, you know, essentially insulated from any pollinators. And here are just some examples we were using. They are called the hobo data loggers, and we put them in the soil at different depth, and some of it we just put where the crops are in the hoop house, in the canopy. And then these are some soil temperatures in Tucson here, and you can see that again, this is a couple years earlier where we grew plants in the hoop house, and you can see during the daytime the outside air temperature went into the mid 40s, but at night it went below 20 even. And then we have those two thicker lines here. Those are the soil temperature at 1 and 2 inch depth in the hoop house that I just showed you. And then we have two sensors that show that the air temperature, even when it's in the daytime, barely 50, it goes to over 100. And that is really too hot for most crops to do well. And then essentially we have a difference. The air temperature is more than 50 degrees warmer inside than outside, but at night they are very similar. And then the soil temperature, though, day and night is about 20 degrees warmer than the outside air temperature. So I think those are really important pieces of information that may be helpful for you to think about when, like in an area in Flagstaff, do I then need additional frost protection with frost cloth in addition to what's in the hoop house? And then here's the economics, which I think is really important. How long does it take to pay back your investment? And what's the marketing potential of your crops? These are the crops that we grew here. And so this was just an example from 2015. You can see that we grew a number of different crops, root crops, beets and carrots, a couple of kale cultivars, a lettuce mix, cilantro, dill, and we grew 2 different types of cilantro. Thebut you can see when you look at what we harvested over the entire season in pounds per square feet, there's a big difference in what you get for your different crops. Also, spinach is in here. And here's an example of what we harvested with the kale. And from 2013 to 15, we harvested a number of different kale cultivars. And here are the marketable yields. And here, most importantly, are the pounds per square feet. And here is the percent marketable yield. And you can see that in 2014, when we had that extremely warm spring, we lost 60% of our kale, whereas during the rest of the time, we had more than 90%. And that is so important. Like Caleb said, you need to keep records. You need to keep really good records, how much, and weigh how much you can actually sell and how much you cannot sell, which is just a terrible task to do. To weigh how much you cannot sell, but that's how you learn what your percent marketable yield is. And here we have the cilantro. We tried 3 different types, and again, even in the cilantro, the hot temperatures in early spring totally reduced our marketable yield per square foot, and to less than 50%. And you can see otherwise, even the different cultivars yielded different amounts of pounds per square foot. And then here is the one that I was briefly describing on the phone when I was trying to get on. This is a break-even analysis, and it covers like the cost to cover the growing cost, the cost to cover the total variable cost, to cover the ownership cost, which is the, having constructed that hoop house and everything. And essentially you can see, if we wanted to cover our cost in growing arugula, we would have to sell a pound for almost $20. And, that wouldn't really go over well with the consumers. With the kale, we would sell it for $40. And then again, chives, spinach, and cilantro are just outrageously expensive because we didn't get as much yield as we did for the kale. And this was the example. If we covered that entire hoop house with kale for the season and we would harvest it, we would earn, after paying all the fixed and variable costs, $271. So again, that's why it's so important to have that program and really cover all the costs and how you're spending money on your production and what does it take to pay yourself back. And then don't forget the labor input, unless you like to work for free or you have people who work for free. Every day somebody had to be there in the morning to open the sides of the hoop house and in the evening to close it. There was hardly ever a time other than during those really cold times, until we learned that 50 degrees, we still need to open and close the hoop house. Maybe a little bit later in the morning we open it, maybe a little earlier in the afternoon we close it, but we still need to do that. And that is something that we learned just by having this temperature data. And here's an example from the literature, and it just showed, I was briefly describing it on the phone too, that for these 3 different cultivars of strawberry that were tested in low tunnels in Alabama, there was really a difference in whether they used black plastic or whether they used a matted row cover. This was like an organic cover. And also which kind of cultivar they used. So keeping your records for the cultivar, the planting time, what does it cost to do everything that you need to do is extremely important. So when you're looking overall at season extension, does the climate warrant it? And in a place like Flagstaff or even Prescott, and I mean, even here in Tucson, we had some excellent crops, but when we had that early hot season, 1 February, that almost destroyed everything. And also sometimes will your customers actually want to purchase out of season produce? That's another question. And how long will it take you for you to get the payback for your investment? So with that, I'm just going to stop sharing, and maybe there are a couple of questions. So sorry for the real big abbreviation, but I hope this gave you a little bit of information that might be useful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We really appreciate your time and your effort trying to get back to us and to make sure we have whatever information that we need. We dearly appreciate that energy you put in for that. Do we have any questions for Ursula now or any of the farmers at this point? I think there are some questions in the chat. Let me see if I can get to them.
So there is a question now about, is this published? Some of the things are in not this exact data, but we definitely will put some of these things out so that people can look at it. Somebody asked about the lifespan of a hoop house, and it depends on your climate and it depends on the thickness of the plastic and the potential for wind and snow damage. In general, we have grown with the 5 mil thickness of glazing, of the plastic glazing. We had it for 4 years and it held pretty good. We had one microburst where we had to patch a small area next to the frame. It's really important that you protect the glazing from being pressed too much into the frame. I think that's where most of the damage comes from. But I think it depends a lot on how severe your weather is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so those of you who were on the field day at Bent River Farm, you can see that they did not use any plastic. They used the shades for the summer productions that they are doing. Yeah, so that will help to reduce the temperatures in the high tunnels, yeah, for summer. But for winter, for sure, you need the plastics to cover it. So you have to also think about when you're buying a hoop house, constructing a hoop house, to think of whether there is one alternative that you can use just the shade cloth within the summer and then switch to plastic when it is much colder. That may be more useful to control the temperatures much better. And also think about ventilation also very well, both at the side and yeah, also ventilation is very important to think about, so you don't get your hoop house too humid. And when it's too humid, you are calling for diseases and pests to your crops as well. Also, I think you want to add something to that.
I wanted to add 2 points. One is the cost of your hoop house will be greatly determined by what the structure is made of. And if you're using any kind of durable metal and buy some of the kits that you can purchase, it's more expensive, but at the same time, it will last a lot longer. We used the 2-inch, we used 1 and 2-inch PVC plastic Schedule 40, which is the more durable one compared to the regular one that is usually buried for irrigation systems. And it is a lot less expensive, but also the durability is not as great. And if you're getting any sizable snow loads on it, it just won't last as long. But we had in several locations, also in northern locations like in New Mexico, we had some of them last surprisingly long. But I always felt a little bit worried when there was severe weather, because the plastic is not as durable in terms of withstanding the high winds as is some of the metal that you can purchase.
That's good. All right, thank you very much. There is this question here that asks that, do you use water and black plastic at any time to retain heat overnight? Oh, that was from Cynthia, right?
We have not done that because, you know, in our climate here in Tucson, that wasn't necessary, even though we had temperatures dip, you know, into the low 20s. That was pretty unprecedented, but it happened again then a couple of years later. So it's not uncommon, but I know in some areas where it's colder climate, people sometimes have large barrels that they fill with water, and that water then will heat up and essentially retain some heat that can be released overnight and can help to heat passively the hoop house, as opposed to something as opposed to putting an active heater or, you know, some kind of furnace in there.
Any of the farmers, Ryland, Caleb, and someone, have you used that before in your area? Any mechanisms to heat up the soil apart from the covers?
I'll say, sorry, I popped off there for a little bit during the Q&A. My internet cut out, but I will say we do a little bit of mulching, which definitely I think helps. And then it's not in the hoop house, but in our nursery, we've found that, you know, our nursery, basically we have a gravel surface on the bottom, and it's kind of attached to another house, so it gets some of the kind of passive heat transfer through the house. But we also have black barrels filled with water, exactly like Ursula was talking about. When the sunlight hits those barrels, they heat up, and then they slowly release that energy through the evening. But yeah, Summer, do you have anything?
Not much different than what you've said.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, so I think Kabir asked about any cost benefit analysis for the hoop houses. Also, do you have any information on that?
I don't have a direct cost benefit analysis because it really depends on the crops that you're growing and how much money you're taking in, and you know what your net profit would be, and also how you do your accounting, and you know, if you're looking at just the fixed price, that your fixed costs and your variable costs, which, you know, if you want to do a break-even analysis, that's what you have to do. There are some costs, there are some breakdowns available from Nevada Cooperative Extension. That's the closest for our area, but it really depends extremely on your local and on your individual situation, and you need to do your own essentially your own accounting.
That's awesome. Yeah, so as the discussion is going on, I just launched the poll. Feel free to give your comments on that poll. It helps us a lot to improve on our programs, to know if we are making an impact. So please take some time to fill out that. I want to fill in some gap with the recycled water. That was question that was asked before. Actually, I'm having some research going on the recycled water, city recycled water, for us to see how that affects our soils and how we can use them in our systems here. I'm working with the UofA College in their vineyard where they've been using recycled water. Yeah, so I'm taking some measurements on the salt concentrations, the fertility, and all these soil microbial activities as well, to see how the city recycled water they've been using is affecting the soils there. And hopefully by next year, I'll be able to have some real data to share with you. And also the model that Ryland is using with the fish, there is a winery that is using, instead of pumping the water direct to water the winery, he pumps it into a pond and then leave it out for like 3 or 4 weeks before he pumps it to the vineyard. And he also has a section of the vineyard where he's pumping the water from the creek direct. So I'm comparing the two to see if we can see some differences in terms of using a stock pond water and direct from the ditch, if there will be some benefits there in the field as well. So next year we'll have some data as well on that to be able to share with you. Yeah, so apart from that, do we have any more questions coming in for either the farmers or Ursula, or any other general question?
There was actually one, Isaac, and it was if there was ever any research on keeping heat trapped in the hoop houses running east and west versus north and south. And I have not seen that comparison. Usually the orientation of the hoop house is mainly determined by the further north you are, it makes a difference on whether your hoop house is oriented east, west, or north, south. But in our latitudes here, it's not that important. What is more important is that usually the hoop house is supposed to be within the line of the prevailing winds, especially if wind is a significant factor like it is in the Flagstaff area and also in some of the other areas where we've worked with farmers. But that particular research of whether the orientation helps to keep the heat trapped better in one versus the other orientation, I've never seen any research on that. And I don't believe it would make that much difference.
Yeah, especially in this farm, I know him, Steve. He's kind of like surrounded by mountains, so I don't think he's going to have that issue of like wind, too much of wind, like other areas that is so flat. Yeah, so Steve, like Ursula is saying, that may not have any big effect in terms of the keeping the heat in the high tunnels. So. Thanks for your question. That was an awesome question. Any more questions? We have 10 people participating in the poll. Please try your best to do that. Okay. All right. I guess if there are no more questions, sorry that we spent too much time today, but it's because we squeeze in or having that patience for bearing with us in that. So like I said, the new project that we just got funded, it's a 3-year project, and we have quite some money to be able to do some more work with great promise to see how we can utilize it instead of throwing it away. Yeah, so I'll give you some more information on that. We also have a project coming in from Ursula's angle to try some pomegranate varieties in our area here to see which ones are more suitable. Yeah, so once we have events related to those, I'll let you know so you can participate if you're interested in that. And thank you once again, Ursula, thank you very much for your persistence and helping us to get some more information. And Caleb, Summer, and then Ryland, thank you guys so much for your time. I'll try to make some time to see you guys hopefully soon before the summer is over. So I'll let you know once I'm ready to come to Flagstaff so I can come and see your crops before the summer takes them away. All right. Apart from that, if there's nothing else, I'll call the session to a close.